and bad discharges in order to voice what they've actually seen in Iraq, and now a growing number of those people are voicing their opposition to what's going on in Afghanistan. And they're risking jail. Some of them are going to Canada in order to avoid returning to these occupations over and over again. And we're seeing a marked increase, actually, since President Obama took office, to people straight up refusing to be called up to deploy to Afghanistan after they've been deployed to Iraq a number of times already. I think people are expecting a little bit more from President Obama as far as drawing down the troops in Iraq quickly, but that's not happening. So in order to feed the surge that he's implementing in Afghanistan, we are seeing a marked increase in the number of inactive ready reserve call-ups. And these are people that have served their 4 years inside the military and often have done a number of deployments already to Iraq, and they've survived that. Some of them have PTSD, and some of them have some minor medical issues. But they've gone off, they've gotten a job, which is not easy today. They're usually married and have a kid, and they're just simply receiving letters in the mail saying, you're ordered to report in X number of days and to ready for yourself for deployment. And these people are in large numbers simply refusing that call-up. And we are working with them to help them refuse that call-up and give them all the options available to them.
Can you tell your own story, Jeff Paterson?
Well, I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years leading up to the first Gulf War. And basically, I chose to resist that war based on my experiences, what I saw that was going on at that time in the Philippines, in Okinawa, and in South Korea. And I realized that our intervention in Iraq would not bring any good to the Iraqi people. And in my artillery unit, I was pretty certain we were not going to be able to distinguish between hostiles and friendlies in Iraq. And that's almost 20 years ago now. And I feel pretty vindicated that we have not brought anything good to the people in Iraq to that time. But that history allows me, I think, to better serve the war resistors to the Iraq and Afghan occupation today, of being able to provide. I could tell them, well, this, it's not so bad going to military prison compared to fighting in a war that you don't believe in,
Father Louis. One of his clients is a drone pilot. You want to tell them about that, Jeff?
Well, that's interesting because the drone pilots are people who don't go to Iraq or Afghanistan.
No, he's stationed right here near Sacramento, California. And based on, I believe he was a sensor operator, and based on watching his missile zoom into the target and realizing at the very last second they made a mistake, but not having enough time to do anything about it, he's seen many civilians killed. Now, from a few hundred feet, they looked like a military target, and they were pretty certain of that. But at the last second, they realized they're wrong. So this is a young man that's refused to do that anymore. He's attempting to be discharged as a conscientious objector based on just the trauma that he's inflicted and the post-traumatic stress disorder that he's probably going to live with for the rest of his life in some way.
Do you see a difference in approach by the Obama administration to resisting soldiers and from the Bush administration?
I think there's a lot of people in the military, I think, have a relatively naive kind of outlook. They see George Bush as one thing and Obama as a completely different thing. But I don't think we've seen any difference at all as far as how the military is dealing with war resistors. The U.S. is still moving to prosecute those members that are being kicked out of Canada. And we're looking at general court-martials. We're still looking at years of imprisonment. I think it really is up to us to create a movement to change that. I think there was a movement that attempted to do that with George Bush that fell on deaf ears. I think that if a people's movement can be created, I think there's a possibility of a victory down the road. But it's not going to happen without us sort of forming our collective people power to force that change.
thousands of soldiers have resisted going to war to Iraq and Afghanistan. Do you know the number overall?
Well, the military stopped counting at around 25 or 30,000. That was
25 or 30,000?
And that was about 3 years ago. Now, many of those people went AWOL for extended amounts of time, up to a year or so. I would say the majority of those people have returned to the military, and some of them have been court-martialed. Many of them have been administratively discharged. But they stopped counting. All I can say is, our organization, Courage to Resist, is, people in the military call us. A couple people a day call us, and we're pretty a self-selecting group of people.
Where did they call?
Well, they call our office here in Oakland. They look at our website. They hear word of mouth. Oftentimes, when we have a person who refuses on a particular base, his story becomes the talk of the town or the talk of the base.
What's your website?
Well, CourageToResist.org.
I want to thank you both for being with us.
Thank you, Amy.
Jeff Paterson with Courage to Resist in Oakland, and Father Louis Vitale, a longtime peace activist, has been arrested, how many times?
I don't know, 200, 300, I forget. Stop counting.
What did Martin Sheen say when he shows up in court to be our witness? He says, "You're increasingly looking like Gandhi." Father Louis Vitale.
We invite anybody to come and join us, because with Kathy Kelly, we're really trying to get a movement going, especially to go at something. This is a new threshold we've crossed again, and we don't want to keep doing this depersonalizing war. We did it with high-altitude bombing, as Dr. Lifton pointed out many years ago, and now we're doing it all the way where you're continents away. It seems like kind of fun, and Colonel Warren Langley told me this on the phone the other day, that he's just afraid that it's going to seem too much like a gang to people and not real enough, and it will destroy other lives there and their lives too. Father
Louis' last arrest was just last week in Nevada, protesting the attacks by drones. This is Democracy
Join
Now.
us.
DemocracyNow.org, the War and Peace Report. We'll be back here in California in a minute.